those of you that are newer to real estate, you at least were alive in 2007, and you remember that the market was at it was trucking along, things were going great, and then all of a sudden it just went on a very slippery slope all the way down to what was our low. And I was telling Marcus earlier that there's so much uncertainty and fear around this shifting market, and a market that to the outside world looks very gloomy. And the reality is we help people buy and sell homes, and people will always need a roof over their head. So it's just a matter of shifting our focus and our energy into what the market looks like right then. I was talking with one of my agents today, and I said, well, the good news is I think I've probably written more short sale offers and dealt with more foreclosures than most people in the office right now. That was the norm of the time that we did it. And the reality is I came in and I was focused, and I got back. I really just started out my business doing the activities that I knew worked. And every year over year, as I watched the market for several years continue to slide down, my business just increased and increased and increased because I did the activities that I needed to do. I adapted and changed my business as we went along, and I didn't let it slow me down. I was determined to succeed, and I knew that I provided excellent service, and that's what my people needed to know, is that they could count on me to stay in the market and what was going on. So I doubled down on the basics, and I just continued to increase my business while the world around me, there was many people, that business, people were turning in their licenses left and right. And I just continued to do more business every year.
Beautiful. And it was really interesting at that time. And I'm assuming that most people on this call weren't licensed at that time. The market was shifting. At that time, more than half the agents in the state of Utah got out of business because they couldn't figure out how to shift with the market. When a lot of agents, like Rusty's example there, that were willing to shift with the market. Basically, when a market shifts, all that means is there's a new need, a new question that the client needs answered for them. And if we can figure out how to do it, and we'll talk about some strategies around that today, if we can figure out how to fill a need and bring value to someone's specific current situation, our businesses can still increase. So it's really interesting to me right now with the number of agents we're talking to, both here in Utah and across the country. We see a whole spectrum of how people are reacting to the market. We've got agents that are just ignoring 100% that there's anything going on, and just being like, I don't believe this. I think it's a hoax, whatever their reasons are. That is their mentality. And then we've got agents clear on the other side of this that are practically walking around in a hazmat suit. It doesn't make one person wrong and one person right. It just is we're all reacting to the information that's being given to us differently. And a lot of it depends on where people go for their news source, right? And so this isn't a political conversation of what's wrong and what's right. It's about what do we do right now, because there is a shift happening. And the interesting thing, and I'm gonna be referring to this book several times in our conversation, called Shift. And if you don't have a copy of this, I highly recommend getting it. We can give you some suggestions on how to get the book, but it is on Amazon as well. The idea behind this book is how do I react to a shifting market? Now, it's really interesting. The word shift is kind of like the word recession. People tie a specific emotional connection to that word. And a lot of times people think, oh, a recession means a major downturn in the market. Prices go down by 30-40%, because that's what we saw in 2008 to 2010. But by definition, the way the world, the economic or the business world defines recession is 2 quarters in a row of economic decline. Now, 2 quarters in a row of economic decline could look like this, which is almost flat, just a barely decline. Or 2 quarters in a row of economic decline could look like this, but they're both described by the same word. Same thing when we say the word shift, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a monstrous shift going from black to white. Minor changes in a market are also included or called a shift. A slight decline in our market over 2 quarters is also called a recession. So we've got to understand what's going on around us to understand the impact of that shift or of that recession. Now, one of the interesting things going on right now is this is going to affect different people differently. So for example, and we'll talk about this on a macro level and a micro level to lay the foundation of our conversation. And by the way, while we're talking here for a minute, be thinking through any questions you might have, and go ahead and type them into the chat box. We'll come back and answer all your questions. At the bottom of your screen, if you click chat, it will pull up a little chat box. You could type some questions in there, and we can also open it up for some live questions if you prefer. But I want to give both a macro level and a micro level of what's going on from an economic standpoint. So then we can get into some specifics on what should we be doing right now. In the book, The Shift, it talks about the economy, and it says several factors can cause an economic shift. So we know that an economic shift is going on. If you log into MSN or Yahoo or any other news source, you know an economic shift is happening right now. So it says here, currency exchange rates and political climate are the primary global factors. So on a global level, the most macro level we can get, it's saying currency exchange rates and political climate are the global factors. We know right now both currency exchanges and politics on a global level between countries right now is on the fritz. Particularly, there's a lot of conversation of where did Corona originate? We got to stop manufacturing in this country. We got to stop the import of these materials from this country. So that we know there's a lot of political, social unrest on a global standpoint that's affecting the economy. On a national level, it's interest rates and inflation. So while there's a lot of uncertainty of how the global political landscape will shake out, on a local level, we know this is a political year, so there's some uncertainty there. We know that interest rates are pretty much at an all-time low, which is very advantageous for buyers right now and sellers. And we know that inflation is going to play into that. Then it goes down onto a hyper-local level. It says population, jobs, and household income take center stage at a city level. Now, when you go flip on the news source right now, the majority of the news articles that we're seeing are national and global news. And so while there's accuracy to what they're saying, they're very blanketed for a national landscape where we need to take that into consideration, but we can't forget specifically what's going on here in our local market. So for example, let's talk about a couple of very strong things that have been happening in the state of Utah over the last several years that remain true regardless of what's going on a national level. First is to look at the population. We know that the population has been increasing at a very fast rate in the state of Utah, really over the last decade. We also know that the rate of population increase has been faster than we've been able to create product or new homes for those people, which is why we have such why we've been continually increase in, someone's ringing. We've increased in prices and we've increased in demand for those houses. That's why our prices have gone up and we have an increased pent-up demand right now. So that doesn't go away. That doesn't change that we have a lot of buyers that not only want homes, they need homes in our marketplace. The other thing to look at is, and there's a little bit more uncertainty around this, is historically speaking, our unemployment rate in the state of Utah has been very, very low. On a national level, it's been very low, but even more so in Utah, our unemployment rate has been lower than the national average. Now, this is where we get into a little bit of uncertainty. Right now, we don't know. The biggest thing we're uncertain around is how long there's going to be this delay, an economic delay of things being shut down, kids being home from school, restaurants being shut down. So the longer those are shut down, the more layoffs we'll see, which we'll start to see unemployment increase again in the state. I anticipate, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but I anticipate that as soon as the news starts making announcements of it's safe for your kids to go back to school, restaurants can reopen, all these things, if we can start seeing business go back to normal, I anticipate that buyer demand will take over again and our market will strengthen on the other side of that. The question on this will be how hard financially were the average buyer hit during that time from the minute we announced things were shutting down to the minute we're going back into the market, meaning from a lender's perspective, are they still lendable? Because that will have an effect on supply and demand. So there's a lot of positive things underlying in our market that could help this be a quick turnaround for our marketplace. But a lot of it depends on how long does this last that we need to be aware of. So that begs a couple questions of, if that is the case, what should we be focusing on now from an activity standpoint? Because one of the things that I don't think we should be doing is burying our heads in the sand and thinking we're just going to show back up in 3 to 6 weeks, ready to go, and our clients are going to be waiting for you at the front door and saying, hey, I'm here, let's all get back to work. There's some very specific things that we should be doing right now. Chris or Rusty, any comments around that so far?
No, I think you're spot on.
Just adding to that, and of course we're just starting, Marcus, so I don't know if you're going into this soon, but you said something interesting. It's really where our focus is. And of course we can't downplay what's happening right now all around us. But when I'm speaking to agents and we're kind of working through this and concerns they might have, it kind of comes from one to two sides. On one side, an agent will tell me, well, what about this news story? Or what about this where we're trending and in this area? And for the most part, the focus is on areas that they simply can't control, right? And I'm sure you're going to be going into this maybe even a little bit more here soon. But it's so important, and it sounds like you're going to talk about this now, but it's so important to focus on the things that we do control and to look at how we're responding to it rather than what the market is dictating to us. And there's truly opportunity there. So
I think that's beautifully said, Chris, because if you think about, think about the last 10 or 15 conversations you had around the economic situation or coronavirus in general. What most people want to talk about is things they have zero control over, right? It tends to be what the national news is. So it puts us into a reactionary state if we focus on the things we cannot control. One of my favorite bold laws that we teach at Keller Williams is, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so a lot of times if we can shift our focus away from what we don't control and say, okay, in this current situation, I don't control 1, 2, 3, but I can control 4, 5, 6. And if I can focus on bringing those to the table, the whole situation can change for you. So I think that's a great point. And a great transition, and we didn't even plan this, Chris, but a perfect transition into the next piece of this conversation, which is shift tactic number 1. In the book Shift, there's actually 10 tactics they go over of how to, what to focus on in your business. And I can show an illustration of that here in a minute. But the very first tactic I think is spot on, and it's called get real, get right. Mindset and action. There's a lot of really great salespeople in our industry. I consider myself one of them. We are all very good salespeople, but the people we sell the most are ourselves, because we're very good at creating justification. We're very good around making things look really rosy. Things are good as they are. I can keep doing business the way I've done business in the past. But what we do know is if the market shifts and we don't shift with it, we will be left behind. So the question shouldn't be around, is the market shifting? The question needs to be, am I shifting an appropriate amount in relation to the shift of the market? And that starts with your mindset of understanding, let's start with a reality conversation. So let's talk for a minute around what is the reality of the market. And I'm not talking about the reality of like how many cases are there in each state. I'm talking more of the reality of, from the consumer standpoint, has their need changed today as opposed to what their need was 2 to 3 weeks ago? Rusty, talk to us for a minute. From your perspective, how has a consumer's need, either a seller or a buyer, how has the consumer's need changed over the last several weeks?
So I think their need over the last several weeks, I'll talk first a little bit about kind of where their mindset goes, right? Because we're talking about mindset. And I think that the reality is if you have a really good conversation with your client, you know what their needs are and why they're moving, right? So there are people right now that they're moving, their lease is up, they were tired of paying rent. And so for them, their need hasn't changed much. They still need a place to live. Their house payment's actually gonna be less than they were paying for rent. And so in that situation with a buyer, their need hasn't necessarily changed. Their mindset has changed. There's a little bit of fear around the market. You know, what's going to happen? Am I still going to be able to get a loan? Am I still going to be able to close on time? Maybe there's some uncertainty with jobs and that kind of stuff. So mindset, I think, has changed. I think as far as buyers and sellers and what their need is, what was their need? Did you know their need and understand it clearly? And can you articulate it back to them? And has their need truly changed? Because maybe their need has changed and maybe their need hasn't changed. Maybe just their mindset shifted.
Beautifully said. Chris, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I unmuted just to say, no, that was perfect, Rusty. Good job. So
Chris,
much more mindset. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think that's a great point. I mean, if a couple of weeks ago, if I would have had this phone call with a client, it would have felt really awkward. Well, today it feels very appropriate. If I would have called a client out of the blue and said something along the lines of, hey, you know what? I'm just calling to check on your family. Do you guys feel safe and taken care of right now? Like a couple of weeks ago, that would have creeped somebody out to be like, should I not feel safe? Is something happening that I don't know about? Well, where a week ago, or a couple of weeks ago, a conversation of me calling to say, hey, it's Marcus with Keller Williams. I'm just circling back with you to check on what your real estate needs are right now. Are you looking to buy or sell a home? That wouldn't have felt insensitive or weird a couple of weeks ago. But you take the same two scripts today. If I call someone in my SOI right now, and I call and say, hey, it's Marcus with Keller Williams. Hey, I'm just reaching out to a couple of my top clients right now just to make sure that you feel taken care of and safe right now, and see if your family needs anything. Does that feel weird today as opposed to a couple of weeks ago when that might have felt weird? Yeah. Same thing today is if I called that same client in the landscape of today and said, hey, I'm just calling to see if you want to buy or sell your house. Does that feel insensitive in the market, in the industry we're in now? So it's interesting. People's primal needs, their primary needs are safety. It's shelter, food, water. So right now, it's insensitive for us to try to fix a problem for anyone if we don't understand how they're feeling with their primal needs. Do you feel safe? And toilet paper, I see Coco put here. Exactly, right? That would have been weird a couple of weeks ago. Just kind of make sure you got toilet paper. They would have blocked my number right then. But now it's like, yes, if you have some, great. The point I'm making here is this is our opportunity right now is if we can get clarity, get our mind right around this didn't eliminate needs. This didn't eliminate the opportunity for relationships. This didn't eliminate people needing value delivered in their life. All it did is change what people's needs are and what that value looks like. And to me, this is what makes a change, is the difference between a great real estate agent and a mediocre real estate agent, or a real estate agent that's just waiting for business to come to them. It's our job to be out in front of what's going on in the marketplace, not only as it relates to real estate, but what truly are basic human needs that need to be met right now. And how do I structure that I can be an avenue to value or an answer to those needs today? So that's something that we need to be thinking through. Number one is am I set up in a way that, and do I have clarity on who I'm reaching out to basically ask, are your basic human needs taken care of? Now that script may sound a little bit different based on who you are and how well you know the person, but I would be thinking through, do I have, can I ask if their basic human needs are taken care of now? The next piece beyond that is I still think there's a layer of value we can bring to the table right now before we get into any conversation around what's going on from a real estate perspective. So once people's basic human needs are met from I have shelter, I have food, I have water, my family's all here, we're safe. After that, the next thing that a lot of people are experiencing right now is they're going a little stir crazy with cabin fever. I get a big nod from Rusty because I know Rusty's always on the move. And if you lock Rusty up in even a couple thousand square foot house, she's going
Not
a little
pretty
crazy.
people.
Well, the truth is there's a lot of people that are pent up at home, not used to being at home. And let's be honest, there's a lot of them that have kids home from school that they're not used to being around their kids all day long, every day. And as much as they love their kids, some of them are going a little crazy. So we're trying to do some activities to say, how can we feel a need for them today? And one of the things that we're working on right now that we'd love to have any of you participate in is a virtual client appreciation event. Rusty, do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like, just to give like a brief idea? You could either plug into this one, or we're giving you ideas of things you could be bringing to the table for your clients right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did is we always do a client appreciation event every year as an office for an Easter egg hunt. And obviously we've had to cancel that because we typically have a couple thousand people there pretty easily. And so we said, what can we still do to create some value for our people and make our clients feel appreciated, and do a client virtual event. And one of our agents in our Salt Lake office had a brilliant idea of doing an online, it's essentially an Easter egg coloring hunt, right? So different age groups, they'll have different things so that each age group is engaged and it's age appropriate, but it's essentially an online coloring contest that we're gonna have some prizes around. And it's just a fun way to reach out, from our perspective, it's a fun way to reach out to our clients and say, hey, I know we're all disappointed. Our Easter egg hunt had to get canceled. Your kids are probably going a little crazy at home. They're not used to being there. This is a fun activity you can do. They can turn it into a craft. There's a lot of different things they can do for it. So it's a fun activity that's all online. It's all virtual, yet it's a way for us to still try to remain social with each other.
Love it. I got really excited about that idea. As simple as it sounds, it's just another way of saying, it's either someone at home right now is going to be like, my kids have already ate my whole food storage, because that's happening at my house. We think we get enough, and now they're just grazing all day long. They've already played every game in the house. They've already won every video game. What does the next 2 weeks look like? So they're going to go to the internet for solutions. We're trying to say, hey, we'll just bring at least one solution to you. Those type of value pieces, people are going to remember on the other side of this. One thing to keep in mind is there still is real estate activity going on. And so I want to go back to something Rusty said earlier that I think is really important, because if you think about different stages of people, I mean, I see on here, we've got some brand new agents, we've got some experienced agents on here. There's right now, as a primary concern, the people that are under contract in your world should get some extra focus right now, because they have some real immediate uncertainty on whether to close a house, cancel a contract. So let's kind of walk through these different scenarios, and each one of these scenarios, to Rusty's point earlier, she said something that's really important around, it's time to redo the needs analysis. A needs analysis is understanding what is that person's needs, which we do really well, and we train this inside our Keller Williams ecosphere. At a buyer appointment or a listing appointment, we do a full needs analysis to understand what is it they're trying to accomplish. Well, even if you signed a buyer agreement with a buyer a month ago and they're about to close on a property, their needs, their basic needs might have changed. It's time to redo a needs analysis right now to understand their current situation. And then going back into the activity. So if you look specifically at anyone under contract right now, my recommendation is that we go and we accelerate to closing as fast as we can. If they're already through the due diligence period, they're going to close anyway, and they're just waiting for the closing date. I would do everything you can to get that property closed as fast as possible, just because some of the things we're hearing across the country right now is, in California, the recorder's office closed for the next 60 days. Title companies may be forced to shut down, so you won't be able to go into the title company to close. Now, we're working on solutions together with our partners of things like virtual notary and things like that. So we'll have solutions, but if you can get it done under the traditional sense faster for your people, it will make it easier. The other thing I'm encouraging people to do is, if you have buyers or sellers that are hesitant to close on a property they currently have under contract, and they're coming to you and saying, I want to cancel. I'm freaked out. I don't know what's going on. Cancel the contract. I think it's a better solution for them in most cases, not all cases, to say, hey, I understand your hesitancy of the uncertainty of the market. You still love the house. You still needed to move. Instead of canceling it, let's extend. And that way it gives them another 30 or 45-day window. And you may have seen that the UAR just came out with a new form that should be included with their contract. It's not required, but it's specific to the coronavirus and already pre-builds into the contract the ability to extend based on circumstances around what's going on from a government level. So I would say extend that contract first and give yourself a little bit more time. So under contract, that's your primary conversation. The next is people that you have either listing agreements with or buyer agreements with. Is they've obviously signed agreement with you of, I am currently looking for a house or I'm currently looking to sell my house. So again, some of those things that we need to look at is how do we fill their needs right now? An example of this is if I had a listing that I took 3 weeks ago, at that time, I maybe made some promises of, I'll do an open house every weekend, or I'll do these things where right now, we may not be able to do that, or the seller comes back and says, I'm a high risk individual. I don't want people trumping through my house. Well, this is where we get to be a little creative, and shift tactic number 11 in the book Shift is really operating to the market of now. So some of the strategies that we're talking about and helping our agents do is there a way to do a virtual open house where, and Rusty, I believe it was you talking about, was it you today that talked about the Zoom link where people could just log in? Tell us a little bit about that as a strategy.
Yeah, so I was talking with an agent today, and part of his open house strategy is typically he'll go door knock the neighborhoods. He does a lot of advertising about the open houses, and it's a huge piece of his business. He does open houses every single weekend. And so we talked through how can we continue that, but keep everybody safe and also be respectful to the fact that we are it's a changing landscape, right? So people are a little uncertain, people are a little nervous. So we talked about some ideas of using a texting app to text out to everybody, knock, knock. I'm door knocking to let you know about our virtual open house. I'm virtual door knocking to let you know about a virtual open house. This home was just listed in your area or in your price range or whatever, whoever you're targeting. And here's a Zoom link so that you get to come and see the house from the safety of your own home. Then he'll have a Zoom line similar to what you're on right now, open for a 3-hour window. They can click on the Zoom line and be able to Zoom virtually into the house. He can take his phone, walk through the house with people. They can go, oh, wait, I want to see the bedroom closet. Go back to that. So it allows somebody to be able to virtually interact. It still essentially gets the job completed for him and his clients. And yet he's keeping everybody safe. He's not having traffic that we don't know who they are coming into the house. He's able to know exactly who's seeing the house. And then from there, he's finding out who really has more interest in the house. So it's just shifting the tactic and really thinking through, what does that look like?
Beautiful. And that's a great example of a seller that still needs to sell their house, but their needs have changed. So learning how to do that strategy today. Same thing on a buyer side. If I signed a buyer agency agreement a couple of weeks ago that they were saying, I need to find a house, I need to move, but all of a sudden either the sellers are saying, no, we don't want people to come into our house, or they might be saying like, I don't want to go look at houses. And here pretty quick, we might not even have the ability to go do those things from a national directive. So one of the things that I just got off a phone call with my personal real estate team in Arizona. One of the things I'm having them do today is they're pulling up every house in our target market that's listed on the MLS that's vacant. And we're going to do a video open house of us as if we were showing a client of that house. And then we're putting together a marketing strategy to go out on our Facebook campaign of come to our virtual open house. And then they'll be able to go to a website and be able to click on the links of all those videos of those houses and be able to walk through with us explaining the house as if we were showing them the house. And we're going to add a couple every day as long as we can do that with vacant listings. And then, so that's a way that we're able to help buyers be able to see properties without them actually going on the tour of the property right now. These are a couple examples. The point we're making with this is not a time for us to just, again, bury our heads in the sand and be like, and think there is no need in the marketplace. The idea behind this, number one, is connect relationship-wise. Are their basic human needs met? What problem can I fix for them right now with some element of value with an idea like the coloring contest or something along those lines? And then after I get through that, can I get clarity on what their current real estate needs are and how is real estate done today with the world being on shutdown, that I can still help them progress forward with what they need, if that makes sense. So we talked about specifically the people that are under contract. We talked specifically around the people that you have a buyer agreement or a listing agreement with. And before I shift, Chris, I saw you lean in a little bit. Did you have a comment around that, or are you good?
I'm good for now. No, this
Okay.
is great.
Okay, you chime in anytime you want. I saw you lean in a little bit, so I was like, oh, he's got
Oh,
something.
did I?
And then the next piece of this is the people in your pipeline that in the last 30, 60, 90 days have raised their hand at some point, and they get into your pipeline when they say something along the lines of, hey, yeah, we're probably going to be moving sometime in the spring, or hey, when the kids' school year ends, we want to put our house on the market. All those people you don't necessarily have contracts with now, but they're in your pipeline. So from a priority standpoint, it's the people under contract. It's then the people you have buyer agreements or listing agreements with. Then it's everyone in your pipeline to build confidence in them of, based on your current needs, as opposed to what they were when we first had the conversation, what is the strategy or what are the tactics I'm going to use to help you navigate the market based on what's going on now. I am a big believer, again, that if we can think outside the box, be sensitive to the situation, lean into the relationship, be creative on some solutions on how we can fill that need for them, then we will increase our opportunity not only to help those clients, but we'll be more poised to pick up market share when the world becomes normal again. Because, and I mentioned this with my leadership team today, I had a call with all the leaders within all my companies at the same time. And one of the comments we made today was a lot of the best business practices that we're being forced into today, this being one of them. This would have been a very easy class for us all to meet at one of our offices, let you feel the energy of our office. The business practices are changing, and they're being forced to change based on the environment we live in. Well, as we come out the other side of this, I believe that some of these business strategies are going to become the norm on the other side of this. And the agents that don't lean into the changes now, they're going to feel like they're behind even when the market becomes normal again, because these business practices are going to become the norm on the other side of this. Does that make sense? So that being said, what questions specifically does this group have? And really, there's nothing off the table here. I wanted to give a platform, and Chris and Russ, if you have things you want to chat about, I wanted to give a platform for people to ask questions. As I've had this conversation with some of our top agents, and in the Keller Williams ecosphere, we have what's called the Agent Leadership Council, meaning that my top agents in each of our offices, they volunteer their time to come help make decisions on how to bring value to the agents within our organization. And we've had this exact same conversation with them. And I gave them a platform to ask questions. And they were asking questions along the lines of, hey, my clients are asking me this. How do I respond? So what questions do we have from this group? You can either take yourself off mute or type your question into the chat box if you're a little too shy to share your question.
I don't deal well with silences, obviously. I guess while everyone's thinking right now, I just wanted to kind of, especially for newer agents, what's up, Levi, for people that are getting into the business, and I know a few others I've talked to are looking at it. So breaking it down, really, you want to make sure you get in front of things. Don't be on the tail end of everything. Know what's going on, and don't, like Marcus has said, don't look at putting your head in the sand. There's definite opportunity to help people. So again, get in front of it. Two, you definitely, those that succeed the most are best able to identify with their markets or with their people. And it's really important to be able to put yourself in their place. So when you're worried about reaching out to people, am I infringing on them, or is this a rough time? Really put yourself in their place, and you're going to know how to show up and how to reach out to them. That's up to me. And then lastly, for those that are new, I know the market in many situations thinks that agents or realtors in our position kind of helped when, every 3 to 7 years when they're looking to buy or sell a home. And I hope you're hearing in this that that's really not the case. It's a relationship-based industry. And with that being said, I mean, it's important to have the knowledge and the tools available so you can provide value. So if there are things like when you call someone, maybe they aren't necessarily looking to move or to buy a home, but maybe you can help them out, answering questions about investment properties, or refer contractors their way if they're looking to do work on their home. So many other things, but hopefully that makes sense to you guys that are getting into the business. But there's a lot of opportunity there just to help people. And I know in this time, what's very interesting to me is people with the distancing are really looking to connect. A friend of mine, their teenager, she was shocked the other day because her teenager was having a phone conversation with a friend, and she was just amazed by that. So I've been surprised as I've reached out to people by phone, when I've gone old school and reached out to people by phone, and like Marcus said, just asked how they're doing. People need that connection at this time. So keep in mind that you are not infringing when you call and show up in the way that you would like to be called, to ask how they're doing. That's all.
I totally agree with that, Chris. I was going to say the same thing. Is in our team meeting last week, we talked about that you can't just run around like a chicken with your head chopped off or stick your head in the sand. You need to reach out, and it's got to be in an authentic way. They may not necessarily even remember what your conversation was, but I even had conversations with people this week of just, hey, I know you've got kids at home and you're not used to having your 4 babies at home. Joann's has their crafts 50% off. Go grab some stuff. Or, hey, I picked up some extra coloring books. Do you need something? I think it's just, if you reach out in an authentic way, they're going to remember how you made them feel. And just, I love that you just hit the nail on the head when you said, for our newer people that are on this call, this is a relationship business. The more you remember that, and the more you think about, we're all in this together. We all are experiencing these exact same things. And the solution isn't to pretend like nothing's happening or think, oh, nobody's going to want to hear from me. The solution is to reach out in a really authentic, great way. So I just wanted to share that. And then I thought of one other thing, and it was so brilliant, and now I can't remember what it is. So it's going to come to me, and then I'm just going to totally interrupt Marcus when it does.
Do it. I love to be, if I'm going to be interrupted by anybody, it should be you. So those are all great points. It was interesting on Facebook today. I saw an agent who's a really good friend of mine, but it was interesting. He took a picture of him laying on the couch, looking miserable. His kids were all climbing all over him, and his caption was, "Can I go back to work yet?" And it was funny. It was clever, but in my mind, I was like, you know what? There's nothing restricting you from progressing your relationship, because that is our work as agents. It's about building relationships. As we build value relationships, which are built on value and trust, as a byproduct, we get to help people buy and sell homes. There's nothing restricting him from working as an agent. There's a lot of people that are construction workers, restaurant workers. They're restricted. They cannot work. They do not get to go. We, on the other side, if we come with the approach of, this is about building relationships and bringing value, we get to work the amount we want to right now. It's about figuring out the strategy on how to do that. Just to give you an idea that this is working for us, in February alone, which we already knew that in February, end of February, beginning to March, this was already happening, not to the extent it is now, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But just to give you an idea, in the month of February, out of our Keller Williams offices up north, we outperformed the market by 90% listings taken. That's a 9-0. In listings taken units, we outperformed the market by 74.4%. The point I'm making with this is not bragging about our numbers. The point I'm making with this is nobody else is having this conversation. In fact, it's really interesting to me, and Rusty and I talked about this the other day. We have leaders of other brokerages calling us saying, what are you telling your people? How are you bringing value? How are they going to do this today? And we're giving as much advice as we can, but you can see a lot of advice agents are getting is shut down. Don't do anything. You might have saw on Inman, Open Door, Redfin. They canceled everything. Their iBuyer program, their open houses, everything. When that is not the answer. That sticking your head in the sand is not the answer. It's the needs have changed. How do we fill the needs today? And that approach, because if you guys are going to be in business for a while, this might be the first shift you're seeing. It will not be the last. I'm about to come into my 20th year in this industry, and I've seen a lot of different shifts. And it's this approach of being ahead of the curve of what's needed, what's the need, what questions do I need to be asking, what tools are available to me, who can help me do it, and let me close the gap. And every time I've come out of the shift at a higher level because of that approach to it, other than acting out of fear. Any other questions or comments among the group?
Yeah. Hey, Marcus, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Absolutely.
Oh, sweet. Sorry, this is my first time using this app. So I'm not an agent yet, but actually my girlfriend and I, we just flipped our first house.
Oh, congrats.
And I emphasize I'm not an agent yet because I'm close. I'm getting there.
Beautiful.
But a big thing we've been doing right now is we've just been reaching out to a lot of different real estate agents to kind of learn how they're doing things and things like that. And what you guys emphasized on, it really showed with us when we were looking at houses is how you carry yourself as an agent was a big part. So we could feel that. So like you were saying, I think Rusty was saying was when you're kind of like have that chicken with your head cut off kind of attitude, you can feel that. You could feel that energy. And so if you're prepared and you understand and you're ready for that change, as someone looking for a house, I could feel both sides of that with an agent, you know?
Oh, beautifully said.
that.
It is. How you show up is so important, and you can't show up with confidence if you don't have the knowledge, right?
Right.
Beautifully said is our clients feel it. If you all of a sudden, if you like as an example, if you've been posting on Facebook all this stuff while the market was hot and all of a sudden you're disappeared on social media, your clients are drawing a conclusion off of that of you're not in business. You have fear around the market, right? So these are all great points of how we show up is going to determine how our clients react around this.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And sorry. And one more thing is another thing. I've just been reading Gary Keller's books, like just obsessed with them. A big thing he talks about is be ready for that opportunity. And a big thing for me when I was trading stocks is when people got fearful, those were the best opportunities to make moves with money or those decisions, because you have that kind of that awareness and that education to make those moves happen, you know? So for me, it's really exciting because we just made this flip and now I don't know where the market is. It could be in a better place. It could be in a worse place, but the goal is to take those opportunities that come to you, you know?
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
There's opportunities in every market. Beautifully said and great attitude around it. There's only one thing I would change about everything you said. And it's, you said, I'm not an agent yet. I just changed that to be, I'm not a KW agent yet.
Right. Absolutely.
That, everything you said was perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well said. Look forward to seeing you thrive in your career. Who else has a question or comment? So what I'd like to do from here is, Jackie, are you still on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Will you type my email address into the chat box? And I'm going to give you my email. If any of you have specific questions for me, Rusty and Chris, I'd encourage you to put your email addresses in there as well. Rusty is our team leader for the northern offices, so basically North Salt Lake North. Chris is our productivity coach and assistant team leader for all of Salt Lake. So if you're in the Salt Lake area, please reach out to him. I'm also available for questions. Hopefully you got the sentiment today that we're very confident, even amongst the things that are going on a global and local level right now. We're very confident about the direction we're going. What we thrive on is helping agents win. The way you win in today's market and tomorrow's market is different than how you won even last week, to be honest. It's our industry is changing that quickly, and it's our job as your partner to stay in front of you and help you learn the tactics to grow your business to the level you want to grow it. So if you have any questions for us, please reach out. We'd love to get you involved into our productivity coaching, into our new agent training, which nobody gets agents into production faster than KW. We pride ourselves on it. Thank you guys for being on. Rusty or Chris, any last comments from you guys before we wrap up our discussion?
Sure. Yeah. I just,
Sure.
Tana, I hope I said your name right. Your comment is absolutely perfect. There's a lot of people on social media, the positive post, the better. We don't have to disregard what's going on, but we can absolutely remain a little bit of a calm in the storm. Today, my social media was, did anyone wake up feeling a little gloomy? If you answered yes, have a dance party, smile, look at puppy videos, whatever it takes to get you happy. If you said no, someone out there needs to hear from you today. So just stay positive, be the calm. The gentleman with the glasses, I think you said Levi, that was a great comment. People feel your energy. So stay positive and be the calm in the storm. Even if you don't know the answers, you can get them for them. So just come from a place of authenticity and continue moving forward.
Chris, anything to add?
Hey, can I put, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Levi.
Sorry. Sorry, Chris. Is it okay if I put my email in here for any new soon-to-be agents and things like that?
I was just going to make that invitation. Anyone that's interested in having either a one-on-one consultation with myself or one of our leaders, please put your name, your phone number, your email address. Also, we've recorded this conversation that if you want me to send you the links for you to have to be able to listen to it again or follow up, also add your name, phone number, and email address into the chat box. We'd love to send that to you. And again, we're committed to helping you win regardless of the landscape. Great comment. Chris.
Yeah, no, great comments. And thank you, Marcus, for doing this. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's leading. I remember now. So Rusty was talking about, videos to post and looking at the positive side of things from Tana's side as well, from her comment. Yeah, so that's leadership. It's not focusing on just the bad throughout. Of course, people are looking for you to empathize, right? And it's important that they feel understood and that you care. But at the same time, you don't necessarily have to stay in that space. What I mean by that is if we're truly looking to help people and give value, Rusty talked about, putting like some funny video or something like that, but she's actually leading in that, where she's taking action and leading people to do the same thing. So in a time of a lot of uncertainty, that's where we can serve the most. It's where we come from certainty, where we, of course, don't just walk over this and pretend it's not happening, but at the same time have a plan and be able to lead people to whatever's most important to them. So as I've heard someone say, and it stuck with me for a long time, this business isn't complicated at all. It's really not. It's not complicated, but we tend to make it complicated when it comes down to our ego, fears, whatever it is, whatever we're about. It's actually a pretty simple business because it's about people.
Beautifully said. You guys are invited to, whether you're with KW or not, you're invited to all of our training. We've converted all of our training over the next 30 days at least to a Zoom platform. So we'll make sure you guys are invited to that as well, so you can jump into our other trainings. And stay safe, stay optimistic. And I still believe there's no better industry to be in. And I am more committed than I have ever been to Keller Williams as a company and an industry that is changing on a day-to-day basis. If you have not learned what we're about, I encourage you to connect with one of us to learn what the KW difference is. I've been doing this for 20 years. 9 years of my career has been with KW, and it's been a game changer for me. I'd love for it to be that for you too. Thank you for being on. And the end. That's the end of this thing. Thanks for being on.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.